everybody, and welcome to the Tea with Crema. My name's Chris. I'll be one of your hosts today, and I'm joined by my best friend, Emma.
Hello, everyone.
We are checking in today with our vision boards, because it's very important that you not only set goals for your year, for your experiences, but you also check in on them, because what is the point if you're not checking in? You're not seeing if you need to recalibrate. You're not seeing if you need to change anything up. And so that's what we'll be doing today, really checking in on our vision boards. So before we begin, Emma, what tea did you bring?
Today I brought a Carol Kapik 35th Trinity. It's their 35th signature blend called the Trinity. Oh, because it's made... wakarimashita. Sorry, I had to translate it. It's made with... The reason why it's called Trinity is because it's made with 3 different things, I'm assuming. Hold on. With 3 feelings. Carol's blending is to enjoy the individuality of the tea leaves and flavoring to expand the enjoyment of black tea. The 35th anniversary signature blend tea leaves that pursue these 2 are youthful and refreshing. I don't think that those are... Yeah, I don't think these are proper translations. Anyway, it's a black tea.
It's black tea. It's supposed to be soothing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of them say that you can mix it with carbonated water.
I dare you.
I don't want to do that.
That seems like a really stressful experience.
What an interesting... Yeah, so they have recipes on the back as well. So it says like straight boiling water, put it in for 4 minutes. If you're making milk tea, put it in for 4 minutes. If you're doing iced tea, do it for 3 minutes. Or if you want to do it with carbonated water, then you do it with 2 tea bags overnight.
Interesting. I think you should try it and see what happens.
Okay, I'll try it.
Let us know how it goes.
What are you drinking today?
Today, I have a tea called Joyful by Your Botanical Friend. And it is certainly one of those bright, sunshiny teas that's just lots of fruits and things. Apple bits, lemongrass, elderberries, citrus peels, hibiscus, mango, citrus, ginseng. So much stuff happening here. It was a lot. It was a fruit tea. It was a fun, bright fruit tea. 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because I feel like when it has all those ingredients, sometimes it's a hit or miss, right?
Yeah. I will say none of there wasn't any one particular thing that really stood out above the rest. It was just like a bright fruit tea.
Love that.
So simple, it was complicated, but it worked. No complaints here. Getting started with our episode though. As you know, for the 8th year in a row, we created our vision boards. This time, we did actually make them. So not like last year where we pretended. So we did actually make them. But an additional upgrade that we're making this year is doing a mid-year check-in, because we realized we were making these vision boards, but weren't reflecting on them until the very end.
Until it was time for the new one.
Now I think one of the things that we read about when we first started doing vision boards, but didn't actually execute well, is that sometimes they do need to change and be flexible with what your current goals are. So a vision board is not necessarily something that's static if you come to realize that something has to change. So today we're just going over our vision boards and seeing, are we on target? Are there some targets that need to change? Or are we just off target and we need to recalibrate? Like, we don't need to change our target. We just need to change our trajectory to hit our target. Those are the 3 categories. So I'll go ahead and get us started with my vision board from 2023 this year. It had I simplified it. It had 4 categories this year: travel, wellness, financial, and reading a certain number of books. And I will say I am doing okay on the travel. I think I aimed really high.
Where did you say you wanted to? Didn't you say? Oh, I mean, you met your international trip.
So I did my international trip. So the Brazil trip happened. Massive check mark there.
Yeah.
But then I also put New York City, which I postponed that trip. It might be this year. It might not be this year. I put the whitewater rafting trip. Is definitely being postponed for not this year. I put the Grand Canyon, and those were supposed to be the same trip, and postponing both of them. And I've put a beach, and with all of the seaweed problems that have been plaguing the Caribbean, might have to recalibrate and save that for next year. And then there is the tentative planning stages of Japan, which outside of saying tentative planning stages of Japan. I've made 0 steps in figuring out what that's going to look like. So I would say my travel category is doing meh.
Meh. Okay, so I also had to travel. I am also doing okay. How many? I think I said I wanted to do 5 prefectures this year. I have done, drumroll please, 0 new prefectures.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. We might gotta change our words because this doesn't sound like we did okay.
I did not do well on this one. I've been to multiple prefectures, but I haven't been to any new prefectures, which I think is my goal for this year is new prefecture. So I have been traveling, just not to new places. So that is definitely, I mean, I still got half a year left, but I am going to be gone for 2 of those months. So
So I think, yeah, this is definitely a time for us to recalibrate.
yeah, I'm going to aim for 2 new prefectures. I also was under the guise, not the guise, but it's hard to travel with 2 people in Japan on 1 income. So now that Isaac's, working regularly, I think that might be a little bit more feasible now. So yeah, so we're going to aim for, did I say 2 or 3? 2.
2.
Let's go for 2. So yeah, I'm
Seems like a healthy goal.
To 2. Yeah.
Great. I am definitely taking whitewater rafting and the Grand Canyon off of the board this year. I'm going to leave New York City because it hasn't been canceled, just postponed, possibly still for this year. And I'm going to leave the beach there because I technically went to the beach when I was in Brazil, but I do want to go to a different beach as well.
Did you make the whitewater rafting goal without researching and you're kind of like, oh, this is something I want to do? Or was it something that you had researched and then now you're reaching half a year and you're like, oh, it's just not in the cards?
I did very, 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 very preliminary research in terms of what time of the year do you go and where do you go? And then did not do any of the other parts, like get a group of people also interested in going to said trip and also doing a cost analysis of said trip. And so I think once I did all of the real research on it, I was like, this is a little bit more complicated than I originally anticipated. I'm going to have to put a pin in it and try for a different time. And it's just because it's a seasonal activity, you can only do it at certain times of the year, which means if you have it's usually around summer in the States. I already have plans for next summer. And by the time that I had committed to this trip, it was already kind of too late to make this summer work.
Yeah.
And so it might have to be a 2 years from now trip, only because I don't anticipate being able to make it happen next summer with my big plans for next summer.
Yeah, I see that.
So yeah, that happened. It's one of those things that we just set the vision and then we do the research and we're like, oh, okay, I'm going to save these cards for 2 years in the 2025 vision board.
But I think that's part of a vision, right? It doesn't have to be that within this year. It's just on your board now that it's yes, your intention for your board was for a year, but now it's okay, this just gets moved to next year's board when it's now that the research has been done. So maybe you could even say that yours was successful because you've done the research for it. You've done the planning for it.
Have still taken steps.
Yeah. It's not it's just, I feel like our category of travel is so broad as it's travel, but it doesn't necessarily mean oh, I'm going to go to these places. Maybe it could also mean I'm making steps and making moves towards going to these places.
Mm-hmm. So yes, it's not a dead trip. It's just postponed. So that's my travel. Then I put it as general wellness. Mm-hmm. And I would say, yeah, I'm not doing almost any of those things. So I have volleyball for a sports league. Haven't done that. Running. I stopped doing that because I ran the 5K. And you know how I am with goals. And then I was doing yoga for the first few months of the year, and then I have stopped, and I have not gone any farther in the therapy process. I was finding a compatible therapist that's also covered by your insurance is a whole thing. Also, I think it's one of those, you don't know what you're looking for until you've done it a few times. You've shopped around and you've actually gone to a therapist. So there's also that. And then trying to schedule a whole, haven't done well. I will say I did put in the kitchen and I am doing okay on that one. Not great, but I am trying new recipes and new strategies. And I think by the end of the year, I'm going to try to find a cutting class, a knife class at Central Market because they have different types of cooking classes. And I really just want to sharpen my knife skills.
Ooh, I see what you did there.
But they only have it, so it's not like a regular time. They just have it at random intervals throughout the year. And so I just have to catch the next one.
Nice. I am so dumb. I just realized that I was looking solely at my vision board, but remember I had done a checklist to go with my vision board. I did a 23 in 2023, so I just not gained access. I just went back to that note in my phone. And I did check off one of them for my travel. I just want to retroactively say that. I said I wanted to go somewhere for my birthday outside of Tokyo. I went to Houston.
Okay. That happened.
On a
That's
school
fair.
trip.
That's a check mark.
Nailed it.
Technical wins are still wins.
For your wellness, is there anything that you want to do to calibrate?
I don't know. I just really got to figure out what I want to do for physical fitness. I think it was because, so what I realized is that I was doing physical fitness and then I actually kind of recalibrated and started focusing more on what I was eating instead. And I saw more aligned results to what I was looking for with monitoring my eating. So I think that's why I ended up putting aside fitness and then really focusing on diet. Not like dieting as in I'm doing like a fad diet, just like monitoring my intake of foods. Like what was I eating? How often was I going out? And all of those things. And actually have seen a bit more success in terms of, I did have the 165 on the scale, and in full transparency, I was 185 at the beginning of the year, around the time that we were setting our vision boards. And when I was focusing on like the physical wellness, nothing was really changing. But when I started monitoring my diet for a few months, I've gotten down to around 170. I'm floating around.
Nice.
I just feel lighter and more energized as well. Again, there's different ways to attack the same problem. And so I think nutrition is where I'm finding the most gains, but I also think I've started to plateau there. So I've found kind of like my homeostasis with my current activity level and monitoring my nutrition. And so my recalibration now is going to be, okay, now how do we then reincorporate some of these physical fitness things like yoga or another physical activity? It's still not going to be running. It just can't be running. It's not going to be running, but it'll be something. So we'll see what something will be.
Yeah. On my end, I did mental and physical well-being. I am not doing great. I would say if I were to Yelp review myself, I'm at a 0 out of 5 stars. Mental well-being, I did say I wanted to check in with Isaac every week, which I feel like I have been doing. We've been having very good check-ins, but I have not been meditating and I have not been putting down my phone an hour before bed. Because I also like to read before bed, which is on my phone, I need to figure out how to get more access to physical books so that I can really just like, you know, those blue lights, they get ya. I also put mental also with like intellectual. I am currently I said I wanted to read 46 books and I think I'm on track to finish that. I think I'm at 24, 25 books as of recording time. So I'm halfway-ish there. And then I also said I want to read 5 more professional development books, which are in the process of, because I don't have access to that here. So those are things I'm going to have to pick up when I go back home. In terms of physical well-being, I feel like I have been stretching every morning, but that's only because I'm in pain. So it's like my back is tight. So I'm like, stretching and then, you know, like doing all the things. But I do feel like it helps me wake up. So I feel like I've been doing that. But definitely the working out has not been happening. I've been maybe a more moderate level of stress than normal. So I've been getting home later than normal. April was a mess because I was traveling internationally literally every other week. So that just hasn't happened. So that's something I want to work towards in the upcoming part of the year, just because that is one of the things that does make me feel better is working out. I did not complete my one soft 75 challenge yet. There's still time. But I have been walking to school rather than taking the bus to school, now that the weather's getting nicer. So
you're just going to do the 75 challenge later? I
think so. I think I'm going to do it when I come back.
That makes sense. Kind of start the school year off that way.
Because, you know, we always talk about how our year starts at the beginning of an academic year, so
it's never too late to start over.
Yeah, there you go. So there's nothing in here like moderation wise. It's just I gotta do it. You know, So I'm like halfway through my books. I haven't started studying for the LSAT again yet. I think I might actually take that one off and move that to 2024. So we'll see. Okay, next category for you, financial. How's that going?
I think I'm doing okay in that one. I actually just finished reading a whole book on finances, and that was really helpful and enlightening and has kind of helped me to point myself in the right direction as it comes to the end of this year. And so I did do some significant saving / investing at the beginning of the year. And so right now I'm just kind of in between lump sums. So I'm just one of those people who has to, I work a job where I gotta save a little bit every month. And so I'm just rebuilding up that investment account kind of thing so that I have some lump sums to work with. Again, part of that is knowing what to do. So that way, when I go to the start of the year, I have an idea of what I'm doing with the money, as opposed to we get to that moment, it's like, oh, and I'm scrambling, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, what accounts I'm supposed to be opening, who I'm supposed to be talking to, and all that fun stuff. So I am definitely making good steps there. As far as my budget, we're in talks right now because my budget's telling me one thing and I am doing something completely different. So we're going to recalibrate and get that all together. That was part of having to alter some of these travel plans, is because my travel goals and my financial goals were going far, far, far apart. So travel was like, travel. And financial was like, what are you doing? And so now we're finding a happy medium of like, okay, maybe just 1 or 2 more trips for the rest of the year, as opposed to the almost 4 or 5 that I had envisioned in my head. So that's okay. I would say overall, I'm doing pretty good. I'm on track to hitting my savings goal for the year that I will then be able to invest based on the new knowledge that I am gaining about investing.
Nice. I think I had gone into this financial year with higher expectations. And then I follow this one like finance page on Instagram at Luxurious Credit. I do enjoy their content. There was this one post that she had made, like, don't beat yourself up for the things you had to do while you were like in a crisis, like in a financial crisis, so like if you weren't able to meet your savings goals or you're not where you wanted to be financially, like if you were in survival mode, like that's not something you should be punishing yourself over. So the one thing that I did go into this year with was like, we only wanted to eat out on weekends, which we've been doing really good with. Isaac cooks for the whole entire week and we've been doing well in that. But in terms of like paying off my credit card, there were some times where like Isaac couldn't open a bank here, so he wasn't getting paid. And that's like a whole different episode for a whole nother time, where like he was low-key an unpaid intern until he could open up his bank account, because you have to be in Japan for 6 months in order to open a bank account. But he was also working under his 6 months of being here. So it was like a whole thing. So there were a lot of times where we were like in survival mode, where I wasn't making gains towards like paying off my credit card as drastically as I wanted to be. And it is what it is. So moving into the rest of the year, now that we're kind of back on track, I think that is something that I do want to focus more on, and then find a way to make passive income. Still haven't figured it out. Is there such a thing as passive income?
There is, but that's part of what I was reading in the book. Like you got to have something to make something, I think, is part of
you have to be active to get to passive.
That's part, like you have to have the active income to begin with, because that's one of the things that I've like learned is that in order for you to make any significant amount from passive income, you have to have a good lump sum to work with. Mm-hmm. And so I think when people are like, make your money work for you, and it's just like, you have to have the money to begin with. So it's not, you can't make something from nothing. You have to have something going into it. And I think as I've done more research, it's also really complex. It is wildly complex. I was able to follow along with the book that I was reading until about halfway through. And then like I was able to keep reading because at a base level, I was comprehending the words on the page, but the greater picture, I was still kind of murky because it's a lot. So yeah, you got to have money to make money.
Right. And that's like, I feel like that's so inaccessible to a lot of people. And I feel like that is one of those big major messaging that's given to like people in lower socioeconomic statuses. Like well, just make it work for you. Okay, but when I'm in survival mode off of my income, how do you expect me to make it work for me? Like, it's just, yeah, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people are also starting to like call out Dave Ramsey, for example, on his kind of aggressive way that he tackles debt and how it's unrealistic for a lot of families. But I do know some people who like have paid off their debt that way. So I think it's really just like finding what works for you and finding out, making your lifestyle match how you want to meet your financial goals, which, you know, sometimes is not realistic in a lot of ways.
But I think we're both making progress.
Yes. So far I am 1 for 3 in terms of categories, and that's okay. That's what a mid-year check-in's for. You know, we didn't want to get to the end of year and then I'm 0 for 5. Or 0 for 4. So
Literally.
Next one for you was books. How are you doing?
I'm a whole book ahead of where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, you are.
So I read a whole extra book in the month of, so the breakdown is 12 books. Approximately, I've tried to pace myself to be 1 book a month. There was one book that really filled me up. It was not good, and I'm not a quitter, so I just had to finish it. But it's done now.
Go to the Instagram if you want
it's
to.
It's on there. The review's on there. It's not great. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can try if you want to. And so I'm actually a whole book ahead, and I'm not letting that like stop my momentum. I think part of it is like when you actually pick books that you want to read, it's much easier to read them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was able to finish 2 books in a month because I wanted to read both books.
Yeah.
It seems like it's one of those things that makes sense until part of my issue was I was reading books because I thought those were books that like I was expected to read. I read East of Eden for no other reason than I just thought people read that book. I just did. You know what I mean?
Plot twist. No one reads that book.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever read that book. It's a very long book. It's very long, kind of very dry. So I am doing very well on my book goal. Again, check out our Instagram page if you want any more details on the 5 books that I've read so far. And the book that I'm picking up now is the Book of Boundaries, which I think will really go into, I think it really helps my wellness category. So even if I'm not going to therapy, I'm still reading about well-being, which kind of counts a little bit. But that's my next book, is just really working on establishing boundaries.
I love that. That's a great book. Speaking of you saying like when you want to read a book, like it just becomes so much easier. Like Isaac is, I wouldn't say Isaac's like, he's someone who like loves books. Like he definitely loves like graphic novels and, you know, manga and that kind of stuff. And so for Christmas this year, one of our gifts to each other was something to read. So I gifted him this one book by an author that I really enjoyed his first book. So I was like, oh, maybe it'll be equally as good as Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. So I gifted Isaac Project Hail Mary because I've heard really good things about it. So right now he's about halfway through and he was like, whoa, this is like such a good book. Like it's so cool. You know, like he's been really into it. He's been taking it on the train with him and really enjoying it. So it's funny because he's kind of similar to you where it's like he is trying to force himself to read these books that are just not interesting to him, and then he's getting frustrated where he's like, this book is dumb, like, and I'm like, okay, DNF it, like you don't have to finish a book if you don't like it. And he's like, well, we spent money on it. I was like, and it happens, like sometimes there's books that you're gonna buy because it sounded good from the offset, and then you're like, actually no, this is kind of weird, you know. So he was in his feels for a little bit, but now he's really into this book. So I feel like I've kind of converted him to sci-fi, which I hope so, because I also truly do love sci-fi. So we'll see how that goes.
It'll be quite the journey. You're so funny. Because the book's weird. No, because the book's bad.
Yeah,
sometimes the book is just bad. It's not just weird, it's bad.
Book, and just leave it alone, and it's fine. Okay, so my last category was in relationships. I feel like I have not been doing a great job on this, except for the 2 dates every month. We have been trying our best to do a 2 date a month. I actually saw this really cool post that was talking about a 2-2-2 rule. So it's like 2 dates a month in your city, so like one night, and then every 2 months you go on a 2-day like weekend trip somewhere, and then every 2 years you go on like an international trip for 5 days. So it's kind of like just kind of if that travel is something that you want to prioritize in your relationship, which I thought was kind of interesting. Right now, I'm not in a financial place where I can be going somewhere, you know, on a weekend trip every 2 months, but that's okay. I can think about it and think it might be a nice idea later on. So we have been doing our 2 date nights. I also said on there I wanted to make new friends. I've realized that being an international school teacher is like being a military child and you lose your friends all the time. So that one's not going well because all the friends that I have made are leaving me. And it's like
so
that.
hard. I don't know how people make friends that aren't work friends either.
Or as adults, yeah. Like, how do you do that? Like, it's hard. I feel like it's hard. But I also feel like maybe it's me. It's me. It's a me thing. Like, I need to just go and do things outside of work and with the intention of like, okay, let's try to forge bonds. But I also don't want to be that weird person that's like, do you want to hang out after work? Or like, do you want to hang out after we like work out? I don't know.
I really don't think it's a you thing. I think there are several articles and podcasts and movies and just all sorts of things that support the fact that making friends as adults is hard. But I also, part of me is like, making friends as adult or making friends ever is just hard. We just think about it differently when we're in school because you have to spend time with individuals in that context. Like, again, you don't necessarily choose your friends growing up. You choose from what you got around you, who are the people in your school setting.
Circumstantial.
Which I think is why we make friends as adults with people that we work with. It's a very similar concept of just like, I'm just around you all the time.
Which is so weird because I remember being in high school and like having a really like close set of friends and literally the day after graduation, never talk to them ever again. Right? Like there's a couple of people I still talk to, but like out of our friend group, I'm like, how, like when people stay friends with people from high school, I'm like, wow, that's like great. Love that for you. I admire people who can separate their work from their, you know, like their friend groups and things like that. But sometimes it's just easier. Like, I see you guys all the time. Why not? And I enjoy your company in a school setting. Maybe I'll enjoy your company in a social setting as well.
And then sometimes not.
Yeah. And sometimes then that's when you realize like we're better as colleagues than we are as friends. And that is okay.
Some of y'all be saying some weird stuff outside of work.
Some of y'all be saying things that should not be, you know, like left from your brain. Like,
it'd be like that sometimes. So overall, if I had to give myself a Yelp review in terms of how well I'm doing this year, I would give myself 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, good for you. I would give myself a 2 out of 5.
I think as I'm saying it, I think if I just did it on a how well am I meeting the goals that I originally set for myself? Yeah, probably like a 2 out of 5 because literally in most of the categories, not doing great. But I think being conscious of those decisions and making, I think I'm not reaching my goals. I think I'm just having to recalibrate in the moment and not necessarily documenting that in the vision board. So even when I was talking about focusing on diet instead of physical fitness, that's not necessarily me not doing well in wellness. That's not a loss. It's just realizing that the gain is somewhere else in that moment. And so that's why I'm like, actually 4 out of 5 stars because I'm still being intentional about what I'm doing. Having the vision board is still causing me to be intentional. It's still causing me to do research on trips that I want to take and realizing, oh, this actually takes a little bit more effort than I thought that it was going to take. Oh, I have to reconcile 2 separate goals and make them collaborate. They don't exist in 2 separate silos. Travel and finances are not separate goals. They are one part of my whole life. And so I would still give myself 4 out of 5 stars because, I mean, I didn't perfectly plan everything, but who does? So.
Love that. Okay. Well, when you explain it like that, I really think that the major messaging is give yourself grace.
And just be intentional about what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm at a 3 out of 5 then.
There you go. See, I'd love that for you. It's all intentional. It's working out in its own little cute way.
There we go. So,
before we start our rapid fire question section of the episode, we do have a pretty major announcement, I would say. More than minor. I don't know if I'd say major, but like definitely more than minor. Mid-major. That. So, for the first official time ever, The Tea with Crema is going on a month-long hiatus. We're taking a break. We're taking a vacation.
An intentional vacation.
An actual planned, thought-out vacation. Not like, oh, we just forgot to post episodes for a month. So we are taking a month off to just enjoy our time. And we're not saying that we don't enjoy doing the podcast or anything like that, but sometimes it's nice to just not have a deadline. And so for the month of July, when we're both off from our actual full-time day jobs, we've decided that we're actually going to take that time off of the podcast as well. And just really be intentional about the way that we are showing up and living life and taking advantage of that time.
And spending time together, because we'll be together in the same time zone again.
Woohoo! So it's just to not have to worry about recording and editing, and we'll probably still post a little bit on the gram, just little updates, how we're doing, things like that. But yes, we are taking a cute little break, and we will be back in August. We are planning to start season 2 of the Tea with Crema. So we are officially breaking season 1. It's done. This is the last episode of season 1 of the Tea with Crema. And we'll be back on August 5th, 2023 with season 2. And hopefully we'll have some more news and updates on that episode for you. So
Woohoo.
not gone forever, just taking a little break.
Just for nows.
So with that, it is actually time to start our
Rapid fire question!
So, Emma, what question did you bring today?
My question is, if your pets, fish has Chris, Chris has fish. I said, if your pets and or plants could talk, what would they say about you?
They would probably ask, why are you like this? Just lots of confusing energy. You know, I am a lot of things all at the same time. And the great thing about showing up out in the world is that I can really focus on being certain parts of myself at any given time. At home, I'm all of the parts, all of the time. And also none of the parts, none of the time. So my plants are like, who is this and why is he like this all the time? So that's probably what they would say about me. What do you think your pets and or plants would say about you?
I don't have any pets, but I believe that my plants would probably be like, this bee do not water us on a normal basis. Are we going to get watered this month? Are we not going to get watered? Why does this big man keep taking me to the sink and then overwatering me? Isaac is now in charge of the plants. He decided to take on that mantle, but I have decided to take it back from him because my plants were dying. So they would probably ask us for a custody change. And to also get repotted because they are getting big and they need to be repotted very soon. So they would also probably ask, like, why are y'all like this? Why can't y'all just water me and feed me and love me the way you're supposed to?
So, you know, I'll go put you in a jungle and then some animal can step on you and then we'll talk about care.
Ungrateful.
Insane. How you feel when that grasshopper's eating all of your leaves?
Mm-hmm. Aphids everywhere. Just kidding. Knock on wood. No aphids anywhere, please. So, what is your rapid fire question today?
My rapid fire question comes in light of really making sure that we are trying to find the positive things in our lives. So, what is something that is really harmonious for you? Something that's really working out right now for you that you can look forward to? It's bringing you peace and positivity.
It was low-key harmonious and maybe a little stress-inducing, but mostly harmonious. I love a good to-do list. And I've been making to-do lists every day for probably the past year. Like, I've been doing pretty good. But this past 2 weeks in particular, I had to be very intentional with my time because I was getting called into meetings. I was getting called into doing all of these things. And yesterday, I checked everything off of my list for my pre-summer to-do list, which felt really nice. I feel like that's not the answer you were looking for, but it did make me feel good. It made me feel pretty harmonious. Also, Isaac has been making really good dinners recently, which also brings me lots of peace that I don't have to think about what's for dinner. He just kind of cooks. He stopped asking. He knows I'll eat whatever. What about you?
I don't know if I would say that there's any one particular thing that is making my life particularly harmonious right now, but I will say I'm being very intentional about my energy overall. I guess the thing that I've heard the most is really protecting my energy. And so just really being intentional and thoughtful in how I'm letting things impact me. And so just knowing that things aren't always going to go my way, but that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And I can't control the world, but I can control how I respond to it. And so something that it's really helping me is just remembering that, you know, I can't control everything else around me, the organization or lack thereof in certain things, or, you know, if something unexpected happens and having to respond to it. But I can be really thoughtful and intentional about finding a way to reframe it in a positive light. So that's not always something that I do, sometimes I really brood in that negativity. So I just am grateful to be in a space where I can find that positivity right now.
And protecting your peace. I love that.
Because sometimes it's hard.
Sometimes it's really hard. I understand that. I saw this one thing that was saying, like, just because something bad happened, throughout your day doesn't make it a bad day. It made it a bad moment, but it shouldn't, impact the rest, like the way that you think about your day. Like, oh, this was such a terrible day because this one thing went not your way. So growth mindsets are happening. But I've also been hearing discourse about growth mindset. So we might have to do an episode on that.
Makes sense. Not everything works for everybody 100% of the time.
Yes, that's where it's coming from. It's from an equity standpoint that growth mindsets are actually inequitable.
Interesting. We'll have to learn more. But before we do that, now that we're taking our month off, if you want to catch up on some episodes or just see how we're doing, Emma, how would people be able to do that?
You can find us on all of our social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Tea with Crema. We are going to be off for a month, so if you'd like to send us a cup of tea during our planning stages, please Venmo us at The Tea with Crema. You can also stream our podcast and catch up to episode 62, which this is, on all of your favorite streaming websites such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also YouTube. So we hope we'll see you in August. Bye!